One of the big things I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 needed between the release of Pokemon Pocopia, which was a surprise hit but a standout game, to the release of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake, was something that could move the needle a bit more than what we anticipated. Now, we had Fire Emblem Fortunes we knew that game was coming. We knew that Star Fox was coming after a bit when they had that surprise direct. We knew that there was Splatoon Raiders, there's Nintendo Switch Sports Resort, but what was going to be the game in the middle of the year between those two big releases that can move the needle for Nintendo going forward and sell the Nintendo Switch 2? Because there are still many challenges, despite the Switch 2 being the top seller worldwide right now. At this point, there are still a lot of challenges that Nintendo is facing, especially considering what's going to be happening in September with the price increase. So I wanted to talk about everything that Splatoon Raiders is now doing at this point and the huge boost that Splatoon Raiders is playing to solidify the Nintendo Switch 2 as pretty much a lot of people's main system, or a system that they're going to be picking up, because there has been a pretty big shift just with this one game, and things are going to get more interesting later in the year. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers, or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. So Splatoon Raiders, a spin-off of the mainline Splatoon series, came out to pretty good reviews. 81 overall on Metacritic, 70 plus reviews. People expected, or people felt, that that's right around what it is. But if you go towards what actually people are saying when it comes to the fans out there, they feel it's more of a 9 out of 10-ish or higher. Some of the things that I've covered recently when it comes to Splatoon Raiders is that it's #1 on Amazon Japan in the US, and in Japan and plus other regions, other European regions, other places. It's #1. It was #1 on the UK sales charts as well. It's been a game that's helped solidify in Japan pretty big launches for the Nintendo Switch 2 Splatoon Raiders bundle. That is something that's been selling really well. I'm not sure how much of a stock Nintendo has of that, but that's been doing pretty well, and that's exclusive to Japan. So that's a big bump there. Nintendo knew that that's something that they can kind of push in Japan, and it'd probably push systems, because remember, they got the price increase for the Nintendo Switch 2 already at this point. We're waiting for it in September, but Japan already got it, and there needs to be something that helps increase the sales when it comes to the median or average what Nintendo's having right now, and Splatoon Raiders is that game, which was somewhat anticipated by Nintendo. I don't think the response or everything was anticipated for the rest of the world. I knew that Nintendo knew that it was going to be a good game, that it was going to be a game that people played, but the response here with the 9.3 user score on Metacritic, and once again, I do not put a ton of stock into that, but it's translating over to what people are actually saying, content creators are saying. It absolutely feels more like a 9 out of 10 type of game than the 8 out of 10 that it has currently, and the word of mouth for Splatoon Raiders is incredible right now, and that's what the Nintendo Switch 2 needed. It needed some type of hit in between from the beginning of the year to the end of the year and what we knew was coming, and Splatoon Raiders is offering that. That's going to help carry the Switch 2 to some of the bigger games like Fire Emblem Fortunes Weave, Nintendo Switch Sports Resort, and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake coming out later in the year. So that's been really good right now for the Switch 2, and of course good for gamers, as the Switch 2 puts together a pretty formidable list of exclusives and games to play in this market where there is a ton of competition when it comes to just all sorts of different places that want your money for a video game system, because there is that price increase coming. Like I've talked about before, September 1st, $500 from $450 to $500. We don't know if there's going to be the choose your game bundle and what's going to happen to that. That is $500 right now, and it gets you your pick of Donkey Kong Bonanza, Mario Kart World, or Pokemon Pocopia. That might go up to $550, or we'll see if that gets kind of phased out, because they did say, well, supplies last for that, so we'll see what they do with it. But either way, the price is going up, and you're going to need solid games. You're going to need more exclusives and more games to justify the price tag on the system. Well, pretty good when it comes to Splatoon Raiders and what people are saying. It's a very easy pick up and play type of game, easy to understand when it comes to how you play the game, and then hard to master with all the different stuff that's in there for the $50. And I think that's the great thing about Splatoon Raiders. And if Nintendo would have known that the game was going to be as popular as it is, I think they probably would have charged a 60-70 split like Yoshi. But they decided to do a 50-60 because I think the development of this game didn't have the full Splatoon team. I think the full big Splatoon team, they're working on Splatoon 4. They're working on that next big PvP game that's going to be a massive behemoth built specifically for the Switch 2. Now, Splatoon Raiders, it's built for the Switch 2, and it's doing things that clearly could not be done on the Nintendo Switch 1 when it comes to the visual and what it pushes on screen and the amount of things that are happening. Remember, Salmon Run, very small area, and you can't do as much stuff because the Switch 1 wouldn't have been able to handle all the things that are on screen, whereas Splatoon Raiders, it's handling everything and it's running at a very good frame rate, pretty much no drops for the most part. So I do think that Splatoon Raiders is absolutely going to be a game that helps push the system a lot more as people decide to pick it up before that price increase is coming worldwide. Another thing is that it's the start of the second quarter. When it comes to Nintendo and what they're doing, having a strong start of the second quarter for July and then a strong finish in September is going to be big as well, because once again, the price increase is coming there. So for the quarter, it was April, May, June, and it finished off strong with Star Fox, which was really good. But then for the next quarter, we were wondering, okay, what's going to be that big game? We know Fire Emblem's coming, Splatoon Raiders, we'll see how people react to it, and it was awesome. Splatoon Raiders starting out the quarter here, July, August, September, pretty strong. There's not any big first-party game in August outside of the Dusk Bloods network test, but Nintendo packed in 3 games in July: Rhythm Heaven Groove, Splatoon Raiders, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Nintendo Switch 2 Edition are all coming out in July. And then next month, it's third party because we've got Lies of P, we've got Final Fantasy 14, we've also got Elden Ring Tarnished Edition, plus Nintendo collaborating with From Software for the Dusk Bloods network test. So there's a lot, and there's other games that I didn't mention, but there's a lot when it comes to third party and kind of different styles of games that's coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 in August. So I do think it's going to be a good quarter, but having that strong start to the quarter with Splatoon Raiders as an exclusive is going to be big, because I think people in August are going to be picking up Splatoon Raiders a lot because of that impending price increase on September 1st, but also because there isn't another big first party game coming out for that month. So they're saying, okay, well, what was the last one they can get into? And it's Splatoon Raiders. So I think having a strong second quarter, obviously important. Also, summer kind of winding down, having that family-friendly type of content, that's also always important. You want to make sure that you are kind of funding your own survival when it comes to getting kids involved in your content, because what you don't want is everybody being an adult and then no new players, no younger players getting into your system or getting into your games, because then your series can die out after a number of years if you don't find new fans and younger fans. So I think that a game like Splatoon Raiders is absolutely great because it's an all-purpose game. Adults can play it, kids can play it, teens can play it, anybody can play the game. Hard to master though. So I do think that that is really important, and having that style of game for the time that it is and bringing that out in order to get more people into the Switch 2, as it is a higher price system than what we saw with the Nintendo Switch 1. And I do think that, yeah, you have to have something strong to have until Fire Emblem, but once again, a lot of third-party games in between then. But Fire Emblem's going to be huge. That's going to be a great game. It's going to be really big in terms of the review scores and stuff like that. I think it's going to be a higher reviewing Nintendo Switch 2 game, but having Splatoon Raiders kind of come out and supplement that till Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave comes out, I think that's awesome. I don't think Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave is going to outsell Splatoon Raiders or push more systems than Splatoon Raiders, but here's what I do think. I think that Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, I think it's a great 1-2 punch with a game like Splatoon Raiders. It's very different. It has its own colorful cast of characters, but the tone and vibe and the content for that game is completely different. But that's the variety that Nintendo's going to need after that price bump in September to say, okay, Splatoon Raiders, Star Fox, Pokemon Pocopia, Yoshi, all the different types of games that it came out this year, Ocarina of Time later, now a very serious turn-based strategy RPG. So to me at least, I think that that is a really good dynamic between the two, because it's not the same type of game, and it gives a variety to the Nintendo Switch 2 lineup that it absolutely and continuously will get throughout the life of this system. Now Splatoon, it's a big franchise. I think some people don't realize how big the franchise is. I had someone on Twitter say, man, it looks like Splatoon Raiders is probably already outsold Star Fox. And I was like, yeah, it's probably already outsold Star Fox, because even the worst selling Splatoon game on Nintendo's worst selling main home console of all time, or device of all time, main selling. We're not talking about like, like the Virtual Boy or anything like that. But even if you look at that, Splatoon on the Wii U, the original first game, sold 4.95 million units, almost 5 million units for that. So that's really good considering the system only sold around 13 or so million units. So a good percentage of people who bought a Wii U purchased Splatoon, and that was a late Wii U game in 2015. If you look at Star Fox, the best selling Star Fox game is a little bit over 4 million units on the Nintendo 64, which sold like triple the amount of the Wii U. So if you look at the franchises, yeah, Splatoon was always a bigger franchise than Star Fox. It's always been a big multi-million style franchise that started out incredible and only got bigger and bigger with each release. Splatoon 2 over 10 million, Splatoon 3 over 10 million again. All the DLCs that they've done, all rated really well, and all have done well when it comes to people picking it up. Side Order, Octo Expansion. So it absolutely makes sense that people were excited for Splatoon Raiders. I just think that they didn't understand the level of, I would say, sauce that Nintendo put into this game, because they didn't show all of the craziness of it. Now, they showed a lot, and they showed some things here and there, but it's one of those games that you actually have to pick up and play yourself and kind of go through and see some of the later stuff and some of the levels that get really crazy. And I would say even like the spicy difficulty and the harder levels, all that stuff just kind of plays a part into what's making people really love Splatoon Raiders, even compared to what they've done with the previous Splatoon games. Now, the interesting thing with this, and I think the dynamic with Splatoon Raiders, if you're wondering why the reviews necessarily don't match up with like the 9 out of 10 that people are giving it or more, it's because there are reviewers that are penalizing the game for not being multiplayer PvP. They're saying, oh, well, it doesn't match up to what the other Splatoon games did, because they like that. Even though the game was always billed as a single player Splatoon game, there are some reviewers that are penalizing it for not being PvP, so player versus player in that type of way for replay and all that, which kind of sucks. But there are a number of reviews that are doing that and comparing it and stacking it up in that way. For me personally, I'm stacking it up in the way that it's presented. I'm saying, okay, they said it's a single player Splatoon experience. It never was anything before that. They created this new. So I'm stacking it up against Splatoon's previous single player campaigns, against Salmon Run, because there is PvE, and that's what this game is. It's PvE and it's single player. So I'm stacking it up against Salmon Run, single player Splatoon, Side Order, the DLC, Octo Expansion for the most part. That's what I'm really stacking it up to. Is it significantly better than those? Because it's not a game built for PvP, and they're not charging like it is. So it's not like it's a $70 game or an $80 game or something to where it's like a, oh, massive new Splatoon game when it comes to the typical thing that they do. So for me at least, I'm not putting it in that type of category. I get why some reviewers are, but I think that if you put it and you stack it up against the single player and the PvE that Splatoon did before, and you look at the amount of content that you get, because it's not like you don't get a lot, I think that it would be above that 8 out of 10 if reviewers kind of didn't try to say, oh, well, it doesn't have PvP, which is interesting. Look, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I just think that I'm stacking it up against actually what it did beforehand and how it beats out all of the single player and PvE experiences that we've gotten before in the series, because that was the focus of it, a single player based Splatoon game that you can play multiplayer if you want. So the big Splatoon franchise that we know, they're kind of coming through now. down. A lot of them maybe didn't believe in the game or didn't believe the game would be that great, but realizing that, okay, hold up, it is really good. So this is the hit that Nintendo needed right now. It's helping sell a lot of systems, and I think it's going to be fun going forward to seeing how people react to this game as more and more people get into the Nintendo Switch 2 ecosystem and pick it up before that price increase hits on September 1st. So what do you think about everything that we talked about here with Splatoon Raiders? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.